people ask me all the time, why were you willing to blow your life up over COVID and kids and schools? And I said, because when I was an athlete and I was being abused by my
Oh my
coaches, I wish
God.
an adult had stood up for me. So it's really that simple. You know, you become the adult you wish you had in your life as a kid.
Oh. Hey everyone, I caught myself a good one today. This is going to be awesome. I've been like really waiting to get this one going. So with that, before I move forward, thank you all so much. This channel is blowing up. You guys are really supporting my work here. I can't get these amazing people without all of you liking, commenting, all that. You know, I hate saying it, but I got to say it. But once you do that, it really lifts these videos up and they're getting to the people who need to see them. So today I have a very special guest and I would like for Jen to introduce herself and tell us who she is and then we'll move forward. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Beck. So glad to be here. I've been wanting to chat with you for a very long time. My name is Jennifer Say. I am the founder of a very new brand. It's only 5.5 months old, called XXXY Athletics, and we're the only athletic brand. In fact, I think we're the only brand standing up for the protection of women's sports and spaces. It combines a ton of stuff from my background. I was an elite gymnast as a child, 7-year national team member, national champ in 1986. I was a longtime fashion exec at Levi's, 23 years.
Wow.
And I tend to say things that are true but inconvenient and get me in trouble. And so I decided to combine all of those things and start my own brand at the ripe old age of 55, which is not what I thought I'd be doing right now. But you know, you got to start sometime.
No, you're amazing. I knew you were amazing. I didn't honestly know all that on your background. I didn't do any research on you because I love coming to these sort of like just kind of blind, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
Wow, your background is incredible. Wow.
Thanks.
Gymnast, like a elite gymnast. How old?
In the 80s. So you'll find this interesting. So I'm 55. I was born in 69.
Great.
I started gymnastics in 74, like 2 years after Title IX.
Okay.
You know, little kid.
Yeah.
Then Nadia happened in 1976
Totally.
and gymnastics blew up. And
Totally.
even though Title IX was in place, there still weren't that many options for very physical, active little girls to do sports. You know, gymnastics was a big one. I did dance. I actually played some little league on the boys' teams because there weren't girls' teams still. But eventually I got very serious about gymnastics. And by the time I was about 9, I was doing it 6 days a week, 4 hours a day.
Wow.
I made my first national team at 10. Anyway, did a lot in the sport. But as you probably have heard, there's a lot of abuse in this sport, emotional, physical abuse. And I was the first former athlete in 2008. I wrote a book called Chalked Up that exposed the abuse in the sport. And that didn't go particularly well for me because we weren't allowed to say this yet.
No.
So that was my first experience. Getting dragged across the internet and kind of ostracized from my athlete community. I mean, I was a grown up. I had kids, I had a job, all of that. But I, you know, had this very weird childhood that not a lot of people understand. And all my former gym friends were like, you can't do this. You can't say these things. This is before me too. So you can't say these things about respected coaches. But then 10 years later, Larry Nassar, the former doctor for Team USA, was exposed as a serial assaulter. And I was redeemed. I actually made a film about him and those crimes called Athlete A, which folks can watch on Netflix. But as soon as I was redeemed, I got myself into some more hot water.
Wow.
Because I decided that I should advocate for open public schools during COVID, which was very unpopular, as you probably remember.
I know. Of course I remember. I remember all. I'm 62, by the way. So I know a lot of this. And I was a female athlete myself. And I was on a team called the LA Track Club, which was also all kinds of crazy stuff going on there. Chuck Davis and steroids, I'm sure you heard all that. My background is almost similar a lot to you, but I
find in the individual sports, there's a lot of more, I think, abuse in coaching. It's rampant in swimming, this abuse. Gymnastics is emotional, physical, and abuse. Interesting. Track and field too. I don't know if you remember the story of Mary Kane, the young runner at the Nike Oregon Project, who was, I mean, abused essentially. It was really sad.
It's women. Women, girls, here we sit today, friend. As you know, I'm connected to my biology. Don't ever get offended by if you even want to call me she. I have no issues with that. You know, I'm really grounded around my transition. I live this way, but I know I'm still female.
Right.
It's not a secret, and I'm not trying to. And
But
also, I come from this space. I mean, it means a lot to me,
yeah.
women's sports and girls' sports. It really, what is happening?
Well, why? I mean, I was just going to ask you that. Like, there was a time in my lifetime where everybody was like you. Not
Yeah,
everybody was like you,
right,
but
right,
like
right.
everyone was like, you know, people who had transitioned or had a sex change or whatever it was called at
Yep.
the time, um, accepted their true biology. But sometime in the last, is it 5 years? Is it 10
Yeah,
years?
yeah.
It's like, no, I am a woman.
It's
Trans
crazy.
women are women. And my issue with this, and I'd love to talk more about this, is
Yes.
if you concede on that point from a
Mhm,
language perspective,
mhm.
the issue itself disappears. And you
Thank
don't
you.
have the language to talk about it
That's
anymore.
right.
Because if I can't say, so we were kicked off TikTok, my brand, for saying if you don't think it's safe or fair for males, we didn't even say men, we said males, we were very careful to compete in women's sports or in girls' sports, then
Yep.
stand up and stand with us. That's what we got kicked off for, because that's hate speech and it's misgendering. So I challenged and I said, we didn't call a specific person the
That's right.
wrong
That's
gender,
right.
which I don't even think you should be banned for that, but
Nope.
we didn't do that. It was
Mhm.
talking about the issue, but they said you can't suggest a group of people is male when they are not. They're women. So you
What?
see what I'm saying? Like, it disappears your ability to even have a conversation about the subject. It's so maddening.
Well,
But
that's
why
what
did
they
it
want.
change?
Okay,
Well, I
great,
know, but when
great
do you think it
question.
changed?
Well, I get kicked off of TikTok too, and I'm trans, and I got called transphobic. So, but that what none of it
Does your
make. That's how I can completely show you the whole thing is BS, and it's not based on trans rights, right? It's based on
okay?
men's rights. Let's be
Yes,
real here, okay? And
that's right.
anyone out here who has an issue with me, you can turn the channel, go somewhere else. You all know me. They're not. Everyone who watches this knows how I
Yes,
talk real. I talk real.
yeah,
I'm not gonna play this game. So, your question, back to your question, you're right. With I think it was 10 years ago I started to
yeah.
see it, but I was just like, these people are just messing around. I'm so mad at myself because I kind of let
You
it
didn't take
slide.
it seriously.
I didn't because I transitioned 32 years ago, right? Just a different world. And
Yeah,
honestly, even then, people were mean, but they were never like this. In fact, people like me. I have not had the issues these people. I don't know what these
interesting.
trans rights people are talking about. I've created businesses, I have a family, I have everything I've ever wanted from my transition, if that makes sense,
Mm,
because I come to it with reality. And I've never said I
yeah,
was a man. I said I want to be a man and I wish to live as a
present
whatever that
like a
means,
man.
right?
Yeah,
Basically, I've just changed my appearance. I'm still female. It's
yeah,
not a weird thing. But also, you can't be trans without biology. That's the actual
right.
basis of trans.
Well, you can't. There's. You're so right, and I have often laughed at this with my husband. Is there's no the ideology does not hang together, because they say sex isn't binary, but then why do you have to switch?
That's right.
Like, just be you. They say women can have penises, then leave it, then just keep it. Like, why
That's
do you,
right.
I don't, which, so none
Cuckoo.
of it has any logical thread to it, which
Mhm.
to me means it will collapse under the
It
weight
is.
of the lack of logic. But I for every step of progress forward we make, I feel like there's two or three steps
I
backwards. So
know.
I think it's going to take us quite some time. I had a, I'll tell you about a conversation I had just the other night. I think you'll find this interesting. So I live in Denver. I lived in California for 35 years. Good home for all lefties. I lived in San Francisco. I loved
Yeah.
it when I moved there in 1992. It's the home. I told everybody this is the place for weirdos. If you were ever
Totally.
felt weird, this is where you fit in. And
Yep.
now it isn't that anymore. It's,
Nope.
aggressively conformist.
Yep.
And so I found the need to leave San Francisco in 2021, despite loving that city since I was a very young person. Every phase of my life, my four children were born there. Like,
Wow.
it's hard to leave, but I did. We live in Denver now. We've lived here 4 years. I was at my daughter's soccer practice the other night. She's 7, my daughter, and there's a couple, a lesbian couple that we have always been friendly with. Their kids go to my kids' school. So my daughter wore a t-shirt that said XXXY Athletics for practice. I mean, it's my, she has
Yeah,
the clothes.
right on.
So at the end of practice, one of the women approached me and I could tell back, I was like, oh God, here we go. It's coming.
Oh,
It's
God.
coming. And, she said, I'm not sure if you're aware what that shirt means. I was like, oh, I know. She said, it's very harmful. It's very harmful to girls. It's a harmful statement to girls. And I said, well, I didn't tell her it was my company. I said, I don't think so. I feel pretty strongly that girls and women's sports should be for those born XX only. It's pretty simple. I was, serious athlete. I care about this. So I don't think it's harmful. Plus it's a t-shirt. Like you can wear a trans women or women t-shirt. I'm not offended. Just wear
That's
it.
right.
So we had this long exchange and she definitely wanted me to back down. But her rationale was, she said, well, it's good that we both care about girls, but I care about all girls.
Okay, she's indoctrinated.
The implication being, I don't.
That's right.
False.
That's right.
Anyway, and then she proceeds to tell me sports are very dangerous. Because I said there's serious injuries happening. Peyton McNabb had a brain bleed and, paralysis in part of her face. And she said, well, sports are dangerous. We need to give these girls emotional safety.
Okay, this person is crazy. They don't even know what they're talking. That's all indoctrinated language. That's not based on reality. Nor is, how dare she say any. Luckily, it wasn't me because
I was nice but firm. She ended the conversation with, well, okay, so I guess we just, we don't agree, but I'd ask she just not wear that shirt to practice.
Oh no.
And I said, I understand your view, and walked away. So of course now my husband and I are going to wear them to every game.
Right on.
Give them to all the parents that agree with us, because there are several on the team.
Of course.
And I suspect she may try to get us kicked out, but it's
wow.
the same as the TikTok thing, because it's like, you can't wear the shirt, you can't say the words, we can't talk about the issue, so it disappears. There is no issue.
But the thing that I'm going to say is this person is a gay woman. That's
lesbian, yes.
How dare she, first off, say that, being a gay woman and even understanding where she's coming from in that space and the rights she even has today, because people fought for her to be able to walk on that course with her wife or girlfriend or whatever she wants and raise. Do you know how hard it was for even gay people to even get kids? Like, what is she? That's upsetting.
Me, I have marched for gay marriage. I have marched for every gay right. I lived in San Francisco since 1992.
Wow.
I worked in the fashion industry. Do you think I don't have hundreds of mostly gay male friends? But it's interesting because there is obviously there's some splintering in the LGBT.
Yes.
Dash
TQRP. I call it pee poo poo because it's just ridiculous.
But she's adopting, and she's younger than us. I would say she's probably in her mid to early 40s, so more of a millennial.
Disgusting.
But she also said to me, this is wrong because she and her wife were rugby players, and her wife was one of the world's best female rugby players. And she said, girls who look more masculine get abused and harassed for this kind of statement. And I actually think my statement is aligned with not harassing them.
It is.
Right? Like, why can't you be a masculine little girl and stay a girl?
But it's so crazy because what she's saying is not true. First off, it makes me, honestly, I'm so mad because no way should, and I'm mad about it. I'm the mad tranny because this is bullshit. It's not only hurting women's rights, it's hurting trans rights. People don't like us now because of this nonsense. It's creating a divide in a space where you're there for your kids. You're all supposed to be having a great time. But if she wore trans women or women, right, she could get away with that. And probably nobody would approach her. Probably.
Nobody would. I mean, it's very left-leaning here. I wouldn't. I don't agree with that, and I wouldn't because it's a t-shirt.
And also freedom of speech. And also, don't we believe in freedom of speech? You can wear whatever they're right. Bam.
We do not. It's clear. And the censorship comes from the left.
That's right.
And they use it to, not just silence, but to manufacture consensus. Because if one view is never heard, and the only view asserted is trans women or women, then it seems like everybody agrees with that. I mean, this obviously happened during COVID with everything, but they've sort of perfected the art. And the up thing, Buck, is that 70% of people on the issue of sports agree with us, but it
I know.
does not feel like that when you're
It
out there
doesn't.
saying it.
Well, because, okay, so I'm going to also tell you how this sort of happened and why
Okay, I
it's
want to hear
happening
it.
and why it's hard for us to push back. Okay. Because a certain type of person became trans, and that person is a male who has a fetish
Yes,
to
that I
dress
know
like
that.
a woman, right? They're
Sure.
not transsexual. That's why I
No, they're
distinguish.
yeah.
They're AGP. They're also cross dressers. They're also fetishists. They're also all of that can go over there in your bedroom. I don't care what you do, friend. You go ahead, go for it. But the
I
problem
agree.
for me is they're not transsexual. It's why I differentiate myself as a transsexual, and they're transgender, and it's male privilege and men who have infiltrated
That's
this
correct.
community. If you know, do you see a lot of people like me stepping up and saying things? No, you don't.
No.
Female identified, right? Male identified females. You don't see a lot of us having this
No, it's
conversation.
all of the males asserting
There
their,
you
to
go.
use their language, male privilege to get what they want.
It's true. It's true.
It's garden variety misogyny.
Oh my God.
It just is, but it's
It
hidden
is.
and wrapped up in a whole different thing. And so it's confusing. It's confusing people. And, you know, I think like you described, I sort of conceded on the language early on
Yes.
to be nice, and it didn't seem like a big deal. It
That's
seemed
right.
like it was at the fringe, and like, who cares? Like, whatever, I can be nice. And now I feel like that concession is a huge part of what got us here, because
Yep.
once you say trans women are women, how do you say you can't compete in women's sports? You can't. They
That's
are women.
right.
There's no difference.
No, they gaslit us to such an extent. We were trying to, even I was trying to be nice, right? But let me tell you, I come from an old school space, and all of my trans women friends are like me. They're like, I'm a dude who just wants to be a woman. They would never do this. That's why I can show you, and you can literally see the kind of guys that are doing this. And also, I only get attacked by trans women. I don't get attacked by anybody else. It's only the mean trans women who are fetishist weirdos who are like, shut up, Buck, you don't know it. And they're jealous of me because I actually am a woman.
That's true.
You know what? They can't say that I'm actually female. So I don't care. That's why they're mad at me, because I'm like, you'll never be a woman.
Well, it seems like I found myself in the last couple of days. So I have a stalker who's a little more aggressive than, you know, many of the people I've had that are just garden variety trolls. And I was doing some research, and a therapist friend of mine was telling me about trans OCD. Do you know what this is?
Oh God, no. Scared. I'm scared.
I didn't really know either. And it's weird. There's a whole Reddit thread. I had gone 55 years without going on Reddit, and I did it this morning like a dumbass. So there's a whole Reddit thread called Trans OCD. Now, I would love to hear your comment on this. So it's all men,
of course,
obsessing over whether or not they are trans. And most of them, they have, you know, it's a sexual fetish. Like when they get turned on, they think of them, or when they think of themselves as women, or when they see a woman and want to be that woman, they get it. And then they finish the process, and then they don't feel trans anymore. So they're ruminating obsessively and obsessing over whether they are. God. They want proof that they are, and they can't get that proof. And it's like this, it's the craziest thing, because they're just on there going, am I? And they're like obsessing over it. And I wonder, as somebody, you know, an old school tranny.
Yes.
Like, did you just know? Or did you have or did you obsess over, am I or not? Like, it seems
I didn't like masturbate. Am I? And then, okay, never mind. I'm actually a woman. Like, what?
That's exactly
insane.
It's so creepy.
Fetish. I worked in the fetish world, and my whole history in the back. I come from a space where I know these people. I've been around them. I was actually married to a dominatrix. These actual people came into the space. That's why I'm very familiar with these people. They cannot pull the wool over my eyes. I know exactly who they are. They would come in, get dressed up like women, do stuff, and then put their man clothes on and go back home. That's who these people are. And that's why they're sitting on these. So we've opened Pandora's box for these people. Yeah. So now they're just doing it bigger on the internet, and they're feeding each other. They're just feeding. And so if you're masturbating to, if I'm a woman, and then getting off and then going back to like, oh, never mind, that is not trans. That is a fetish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I know completely, and the obsessiveness with which they're ruminating
that's
on this, at
right.
least
That's right.
and I think that is broader than this issue in our culture. This sort of
Yes.
obsessive rumination on the self and the
Yes.
anxiety, and it's that seems a problem. But the other thing I have observed, which is kind of this is a piece of, but it's broader, is this desire to normalize every messed up behavior. Like in San Francisco, before I left, there were billboards about, don't feel shame because you shoot up.
You have got to be kidding me.
No, it's a very
Pro drugs.
harm reduction is what they call it, and it's like, don't feel shame if you shoot up. Do it with a friend because it's safer, but you shouldn't feel shame. It was like this obsessive campaign with like eliminating shame, and in my mind I'm going,
what?
Maybe a little shame is good.
You think? Wait a minute. I'm sober from hardcore drugs, 30 something years at this point. Hardcore drugs. That's not how you actually help somebody. That's not compassion. You are hurting them. That's San Francisco has lost it. I'm old school San Francisco too, where it was completely like, yeah, live to live. But you would never do that for somebody who's on drugs. You would try to help them get off of the drugs.
But I just see sort of this like harm reduction mentality across a variety of issues where it's like, we need to tell people not to feel shame. I mean, that's to me sort of part of the whole like drag queen story hour at the library with 4-year-olds. It's like, you can't not feel shame about this unless you get to do it at the library. Well, I've attended a gazillion drag shows. Part of the appeal is that it's subversive. If you're doing it in a library for 4-year-olds, it's not. But
God.
There's this push so that no one ever feels any shame. And I am an advocate for bringing back a little bit of shame.
Let's bring back shame. Are you kidding me? Shame is the reason why I am the person I am today. I went through tons of therapy, got sober, got my stuff together. I really realized what I'm doing is not okay. Homelessness, drug addiction, prostitution. It was not okay. And I would not be here today. And I had to get down to, it's called humiliation. You have to learn like full on humiliation. And now they don't want people to be humiliated. That humility is a reason.
Them.
They are killing it. And that's what they're just renaming it as shame, right? It's humility. You've got to be humiliated on some level at some point in your life in order to move forward and to understand that, no, there are certain things in this world that are not okay, right? And that's why we have structure and why we have a society. I feel like they're trying to tear down the societal walls, right? So we don't, rules and regulations are there. If we don't have stop signs or red lights, everybody will be crashing into each other.
Right. Shame has served a purpose. And while I would agree that as somebody who has in my whole life had a very sensitive shame trigger, like there are certain things that, I don't know, like women shouldn't be ashamed of being horny, right?
Come on, that's different. That is totally different.
But then we went there and then we just like went so far past that, it's like crazy. Or even body positivity, which I think started in a really good place.
That's right.
As a former anorexic, it's like to see regular women, real women, not feel like I need to weigh 75 pounds, but that doesn't mean we should say that it's healthy to be 550 pounds.
Because
you're a good person, but
there's a balance.
And we just like ran past all of it. It got crazy.
Because no shame.
Because no shame. And it's just like, within if I bring it back to kind of where we started, no one, well, maybe some people minded that we're super far right, but like for the most part, nobody really minded the rainbow t-shirts and the this and the that. But when Target makes tuck-friendly bathing suits for 6-year-olds, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, God, what? That is, I'm a parent too. I have a 12-year-old boy, and he's a boy, and he's not nothing else but a boy. So like, you know what I mean? And I'm trans, and I'm like, no, dude, when there's non-binary people at your school, that's not real. So he knows. He's like, dude, there's a non-binary at my school. I'm like, don't pay attention. It's all stupid, dude. And he comes from camp, and he's like, you know what? All the girls at space camp, 12 years old, all of them, Jen, were trans identified and said it were their pronouns. I go, we're shaming girls. We are making girls not think it's okay to be astronauts or masculine or do boy things, right? Like, what?
It's the opposite of everything. I think, feminists, and I still claim that term. I'm fine being called a feminist. Like,
Me too.
We wanted a more expansive view of sex. Like, I could sleep with women and still be a woman. I could look more manly. I could wear lumberjack outfits, still be
Totally.
a woman. Like I could do whatever I want. I could be a successful CEO and still be a woman. That
Yes.
doesn't make me a man. And vice
God.
versa, frankly. I mean,
Yeah. Of course.
for little boys who are probably gay,
Yes.
to be
Yes.
told you might be a girl is just devastating to me.
It's disgusting, and it's homophobia. I will say it over and over again.
Yeah, it is.
This is partly a homophobic movement because
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I know this too. I lived a long time as a gay woman. Okay, it just didn't work out for me. No big deal. I don't hate it. I have a lot of friends who are still gay women and all of that space. I feel very attached to the LGB part of the community. But that being
Yeah.
said, like if we don't have this space for people to sort of deal with their own space and not shove them, so I do think there's a homophobia around parents who don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to have a gay kid, and then it's
Yeah.
easier to have a trans kid because it's celebrated now. I do
Well, yeah.
feel on some level, I'm not saying all parents, but I do think some parents might feel it's easier to have a trans kid than it is to have a gay kid, and we're not talking
I think
about this.
I think that's right on the right, or sort of maybe more, Christian. But I
Yeah.
think on the left, you
Yeah.
have parents that are social justice warriors who are
Wow.
white. They're
Wow.
white, and so they need to denounce their privilege. They don't, even white women, especially white women,
Bleh.
who used to be able to kind of be oppressed because they were women, but now
Yeah.
a white woman is really bad, right? You're a Karen.
Totally.
So they want to prove their progressive bona fides.
Yes.
And I think all too quickly, put their kid on this train.
Wow. Just wow.
Don't So it's like both sides are, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think before we started the conversation here recording, we said that, we're pretty middle ground people, but we're in this weird space but I really do believe this, Jen. I believe there's so many of us out there that we need to find each other, because the more we find each other, we can have these, and we can come back to some sense of reality. Nobody's saying that. I mean, I hope they're not saying trans people don't exist, because they do. I'm sitting right in front of you. What doesn't exist is doing this to a child. You cannot. I will tell you, if anyone's going to tell you, it's me, the oldest tranny on the block. You cannot do this to a child. It is not normal. And
I think Caitlyn Jenner's older than you.
but I transitioned before her.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay, good point.
But she's important to the fight, because she
Yeah.
is most definitely being very authentic and being very
Yeah.
real about it. She is. She's like me. So she's
And
very.
she says we should not do this to children. I would not be
That's-
the person I am if this had come at me as a child. And
That's right.
obviously speaks from the place of having been an elite athlete when it comes to the issue of sports, which is Olympic gold medalist. But so I think we need to also create the space to welcome newcomers.
Of course.
I mean, I feel like my dog in this race, and I've been standing up for female athletes for almost 20 years. I stood up for female athletes to be free from abuse before the Me Too movement.
Mhm.
So there are definitely people on the lefty, like turfy side of things that are like, who
Totally.
are you? You don't get to come in here. It's like, dude, leave me alone. So you want to grow the movement? I mean,
It's crazy.
and then it's just, I had this thought when I watched the RNC. This is a related thought, I promise. And, if you watched it, did you see Amber Rose speak?
Of course. Yeah.
And I thought she was great. I thought she was humble and
Mhm.
real and authentic. And
Yep.
I know who she is because we worked with tons of musicians, including Wiz Khalifa when I was at Levi's. And I know for young people, they know who she is. And it,
Mhm.
whether you want to vote for Trump or not, like, it creates the space to make that party a bigger tent.
That's right.
I'm not a Republican, I'm an independent, but like, there were a lot of super righties that were very critical of her being there. And I'm like, you guys, do you want to win, or do you want to grow
Yeah.
or not? And I feel the same about this. It's like there's these
Yes.
purists who say,
Yes.
you can't come in here, you're not enough this or that. Now I'm like, I want to create the space for people I disagree with on other issues, but I agree with on this, to
That's
fight
right.
to protect children. I can't, there's a lot of people pushing against that.
Well, it doesn't make sense. I get it for a lot what they call the TERFs or the gender criticals. I get nailed a lot by them. They do not like me. And I'm like, really? I'm extending my hand. Put that over here, because you and I.
Beef?
Oh, because they think because I'm so widely known that I'm literally telling this to the children. I'm like, you're listening to me. I said, I am very anti-transitioning children. Number one. Number
I
two, I'm
see.
pro-biology. I'm everything you are. But you need to
Right.
understand that I do acknowledge this is an actual mental illness. I have a mental illness called gender dysphoria. I acknowledge that. It's the whole reason
Yeah.
I'm so grounded about it, because I
Right.
have a diagnosis and I completely understand it's a medical condition. And it's weird. I'm like extending my hand to them and they're just like, you're the problem. I'm like, but this is not how we're going to find the solution. I feel like people don't want solutions. They want their
They want to
hard
fight.
line. And if you don't believe what they believe, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole like purity test where you're there from the beginning, you see it in a lot of movements. And it, frankly, until various movements get over it, they stay fractured and
Yes.
aren't successful. And, you know, I certainly see it. I was a very early dissenter of COVID lockdowns, and
Mm-hmm.
there weren't very many of us that
No.
were like from March 2020. But, and I will tell you, there are purists in our midst who are like, you don't get to be part of this if you weren't there on March 13th, 2020. I'm like, well, if that's the case, we're going to lose and we're going to have more lockdowns, because there were like three of us. So I don't care when you came to it. I
My
don't care if
God.
it was last year. If you think school closures were bad, you don't think we should put masks on 2-year-olds
Oh,
who are
God.
drooling and can't, put their shoes on,
Totally.
then you're on my team and
Yep.
let's like do this together. But
Yep.
I don't know, people, I don't know why they just are very defensive about
Yes.
their turf, and it's on the right too, because I'm sure you get it from the right.
Oh my God, I get nailed from all sides. Are you kidding me? Trans,
do too.
gay, lesbians, turfs, gender critical, right, left. I'm like, okay, I'm good here. just know that these are the things I stand for: truth, honesty, right? Like
Yeah.
economy. Like, can we just get our country back together? Like, come on, can we have a president who's literally going to work for the people? Don't appoint somebody that I wasn't voting for. That's why I'm so mad at the Democratic Party. How dare you just shove somebody? I didn't want her. Okay, so now all of a sudden, what about me?
You didn't
Like,
get to vote. Yeah,
I didn't. Isn't that democracy?
it's so awful.
What?
And as a longtime San Franciscan who has had the opportunity to vote for her many times in the state of California and
Yes.
did not,
Nope.
even as a Democrat.
Yep.
Look, she dropped out of the Democratic primary in 2019
That's
before
right.
a single primary because she was so unpopular.
Yep.
I stand by believing that the reason Biden didn't step aside or get ousted sooner was because they had a Kamala problem and they knew she was the least like VP ever. And then I think even they're amazed at what they've been able to do in such a short period of time by co-opting the press to write all of these headlines
we know that.
how brat she is and all that garbage.
It's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing, honestly. I love being an American. I am very proud of being American. I travel the world. I know a lot about what's going on. I lived in Mexico for 10 years. I know a lot about what it means to be American, what we have here, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize what we have here, and really on the slippery slope of losing that when you think you're just going to vote for somebody because they're a woman and they're black and I'm like, are you insane? That has nothing to do with anything about the politics of this country. And she has how can you just put somebody in a position that they have no understanding of what they're getting into? Her foreign policy, all of it. I'm just like, what? You're going to put somebody like that in a leadership?
Well, and I actually believe, and I wish I could find this interview that I heard when it was in 2019 when she was in the primary. And she talked about that somebody asked her what her overriding political philosophy was.
Okay.
And she said she didn't really have one. I mean, essentially, she said if it was popular and expedient and helped people, she would do it. Now, she did say it was about helping people, but because they were asking her, like, her views seemed to be a little all over the place. And she was explaining that there wasn't an overarching sort of philosophy. And I believe this is true. I don't think she believes in anything. I don't think she has any beliefs or principles. I think she changes depending on what is most expedient. And I think she talks that way for a reason. I've been meaning to write something on this.
Yeah.
The vagaries, it's very common in corporate America. I spent 35 years in corporate America.
Great.
If you don't commit to anything, you can't be held to anything.
That is scary. That is actually scary.
So they learn, I'm going to talk about corporate, but I observe it with Kamala as well. they learn to talk in this way that sounds kind of smart because you use the words, but it's all filler and it all says nothing. But people, because it sounds smart, nod. And like in corporate America, that people say, we need to take a step back and stare this down and look really hard and circle back. And you're like, what the did you just say? Nothing. And yet everyone's like, yeah.
Oh my God, it's so like cult-like on some level, because the same in cults are just like blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, yeah, that's why I really attribute the trans movement to that. These people don't know what they're saying, and they've really brainwashed people to believe trans women are women. You know, when you say stuff over and over, that's a very cult-like mentality. It is. It's very powerful. You know, probably in corporate too, when you make these little like sort of sayings, right? Like whatever the saying is, and you just keep saying it over and over, like Starbucks, and then everyone's like, I want to Starbucks.
Well, that's like advertising. That's the whole philosophy of advertising.
Totally.
Right? Yeah, you hear it enough and it becomes true. And the press fell in line instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no daylight between, big media, social media, and the Democratic Party. And so they just repeated the line. She was brat. She was this.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't know what brat was.
Neither did I.
Because I'm old. And I'm like, okay, that means you're like a hot mess, drunk, stumbling home. Right?
That's what it means. I know. I didn't know either until they told me.
And you're like, that is what we want our president.
Because they're trying to capture that young generation who were kind of lost in it when nobody wanted Biden because he was just a complete total mess. And then they just had to flip the switch real quick. And then they just went right after that. And it worked on some level because they did.
It totally worked.
It's shocking. It's actually scary.
But you know what? I'm going to give you an analogy. In marketing, despite having been a marketer, I mean, I was the chief marketing officer at Levi's for 8 years. I worked there 23, mostly in marketing. Marketing works. I'm amazed about it to this day. But like, if you put a mannequin in a store with an outfit, everybody wants that outfit.
Yes.
You think I could sell that no matter what? Nope. You got to put the mannequin, and then you got to have the email, and running a new upstart retail business, if some, like we recently here, you'll appreciate this. So US Open is going on right now. Sabalenka's physio coach, her fitness coach, has been wearing our hat on the sidelines.
Congratulations.
Which is cool. He bought it himself. I didn't give it to him. His name is Jason Stacy, and he wears it literally every match. He wore it at the Cincinnati. So that hat we cannot keep in stock. People see the hat, they buy the hat. Like marketing, it's very literal. So it's the same.
Yes.
If the New York Times and CNN and every kind of quote unquote credible publication says the same thing in the same headline over the course of 2 days, then everybody believes it. They want the hat.
Right. No, but that's why I'm so mad. I was very mad at the New York Times for a long time, who was supposedly a very credible organization in journalism, because they kept pushing trans kids and puberty blockers when we all were saying, right? And I'm good friends with Barry Weiss. And like when she left, that was very powerful when she left. And I said, I know they're falling. They're not actually reporting the truth about puberty blockers. And I'm like, how can an actual organization like the New York Times be sucked? That's when I'm like, oh, we are in big trouble right now, because they are just citing somehow they got captured. That should scare everybody, no matter what you believe about puberty blockers. When the journalists in those spaces are captured by ideological spaces, that is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they absolutely are. And certainly I observed it during COVID.
Oh my God.
There was no article that wasn't keep your child home or all the children will die and the children are going to kill the teachers and everyone's going to die. And it was never the case that everyone was at equal risk. It was ridiculous. So they were, and anything, spoken outside of that was heresy, and you were going to be tarred and feathered. That was the end of you. That was certainly, my experience. But now I feel like I don't even think they're captured, but they're not coordinating. Like it's this mass formation psychosis. Everybody's just moving in one direction and saying the same things. Now they may get actual guidance to say, call Kamala brat, but it's like there's not coercion. It's just everybody's like moving in lockstep in one direction.
That's right.
But now I have observed like every 20th article, the New York Times will actually present an opposing view, only in the opinion pages. But then the New York Times readers get pissed and they're like, you're anti-trans, you're
I know.
alt-right, and they're all canceling their subscriptions. It's like, oh
Disgusting.
my God.
It is actually crazy to me, because isn't that what journalism is supposed to be about? We have because now we have right and left journalism. That's not journalism. Journalism is supposed to bring you the story, and factually based story, and everyone knows who is anywhere near. And I always talk about trans kids because it's really my platform, and women's rights. How dare we create a narrative that says trans women are women? How dare we do that, when that is, first off, that's transphobic, because you're not acknowledging what trans actually is. And then it's also misogyny. It's like all of these things packed in one, and then here we are.
What is so egregious to me, well, objectivity in journalism became racist in 2020. So you had to stop pretending you could be objective. I mean, the Washington Post wrote a whole piece on we have to set the notion of objectivity aside because objectivity is racist. But I would say beyond the journalists, the scientific community is utterly captured. Like, where's the American Academy of Pediatrics?
Nope. It's disgusting. They literally, why would medical supposedly, well, I think we both know, right? I know what you're going to say.
Well, I think there's a few reasons. I guess I'm curious what you say. What I would say is they're wrong all the time.
Sure.
I mean, they were prescribing opioids as non-addictive for 20 years.
Great point.
That was a pharma-driven thing.
Yes.
Think how many times they've been wrong.
Good point.
So why should we be surprised in this case? I don't know.
That's an excellent point. I have to say that I actually didn't really think of that, but you are
What were
really
you thinking of?
Well, I always think of money, because our country is really built on capitalism, which I'm a pro-capitalistic person, but that went off the rails on some level too. But that being said, I do think it's driven by ego, because a lot of doctors, if you know doctors, they have massive egos. And number two, money, big pharma. There's no other reason.
I think that's right. And that is true of the opioid crisis. I mean, there are other instances. I mean, the recovered memory phase.
Oh, wow. Remember that? Wow.
I mean, that was driven by not medical doctors, but the medical community, therapists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists. And I don't think that was money driven. That was like a fever dream. It was crazy though. I mean,
but people put their fathers in prison, and people lost their lives over that nonsense. And no, you're right. Well, that could be driven by ego or some thing.
I just think they're regular people, and they can get they're not better or smarter or more objective.
Yeah, that's right.
And if something becomes like a craze, they can get swept up in it. But I will tell you, every single person I know that bought into recovered memoary, and I knew a lot of women that did, who suddenly woke up one day and were like, I think I was, my crib. And you're like, really? Why do you think that all of a sudden? Every single one of those women is all in on this gender ideology.
Oh my God, because those are the kind of people that are easily manipulated. I think those people somehow are not solid in their own space. People who are so easily told things without doing any research, right? People don't do their due diligence on anything anymore. They're just like, oh, well, so-and-so told me. I'm like, but did you look? That is actually not the truth.
And a lot of those people who believe anything are doctors. There's just as many that are doctors. There aren't more doctors that are critical thinkers.
That's right.
And so they get the dictate from the American Academy of Pediatrics or from whatever medical organization. They're like, okay, that's our marching orders. And they just go about it. But I agree with you. I agree with you. Money is part of it. So you think within the sort of transitioning of children and gender ideology that pharma is having an outsized impact because this creates lifelong patient? Like, you think?
Well, there's that. I think there's that. I think that there's ego from the doctors thinking that they're going to change these kids. And I feel like it's evil doctor somebody. You know what I mean? There's this guy called the queer surgeon in Oregon who's actually advocating, this is going to blow your mind. Probably not. You're probably not. Gender affirming surgery for minors. Wait, what? Those words should never be in the same set. Surgery for minors, gender affirming.
Is he the one that also does the surgeries that, like, you can like mix and match? You can be more non-binary. You can make up your own genitals and like have some weird combo.
Yeah, it's called nullification surgery. It's an actual real thing where you can have a Barbie bump instead of having a penis or a vagina and no nipples. And then kids, these are kids who are doing this stuff. They're like 16, 17. How is that even legal? Do you know what I had to go through to get even what I had, which is just my chest? But to have hormones, I had to go through years of therapy. I had to be monitored at every 6 months. I had to go, I started very slow on the testosterone. The doctor had to have notes from everybody before I could even have my breasts removed. And I really always say it's why I'm solid. They took me in such a slow,
so you think that was the right thing, obviously.
I did it at 30, friend. I don't advocate for anybody even younger than 25 to even think about doing what I did.
Well, and certainly it's interesting because you say you have did you call it a disorder?
Yeah, I have a disorder. I have a mental disorder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because then you have these kids and young adults and young people even in their 20s who have different disorders that are very destabilizing. Those are being ignored. It's like your sanity comes from the fact that you know that you have a disorder, which is so interesting.
Totally.
And all of their comorbid disorders, whether it's whatever the things are, extreme OCD or anxiety, or those are ignored and thought to be caused by.
Oh my God.
A more thoughtful therapist might say, oh, those things will disappear. They're caused by the dysphoria, which is a lie, obviously. It's a
total lie. Mine didn't just go away. I had all of those things, right? It took years for me to finally not feel like offing myself. I did even in the beginning, I still felt like offing myself on some level, right? And that's part of the process of trying to figure out. It's a mental disorder, people. It's not a physical disorder. The physical thing comes last, not first.
Right. What do we do with also, because I think you're right, as you were, I know you're right, especially now that I went on that awful trans OCD Reddit page about the autogynephiles and this like compulsive behavior but like they've infiltrated this space. They're demanding to be called women because it probably turns them on.
Yeah, it does.
And they're demanding to be in, our sports and spaces. And the establishment is saying, okay, like what do we do?
Well, we keep doing what we're doing right here. And I see you on so many different platforms, and you are a hero, friend, and you're fighting for us, and even me. You're fighting for me, and you're fighting to get back to common sense, because if we don't speak, I know we're in such a weird position right now. It's a male movement. That's the part. Hello, people. It's literally men pushing women out of the way again. Here we go, all over again.
Which is what we just were railing against for the last, since the Me Too movement. It was like men, male privilege, disavow your privilege. Now how dumb are we?
We're dumb.
Men for 5 years, toxic masculinity, disavow your privilege, men are evil, men are horrible. So then the men realized, well, I'll just say I'm trans and then I get to still have whatever I want.
It's so, actually, if you look at it outside of how angry I am about it's actually smart, and they actually worked it, and now the men can get into the women's toilets, they can go play sports. You have to look at the kind of men they are. They're really messed up they're mentally
kind of men.
They're a mental illness. They have full-on mental illness. They're the worst kind of men, and I will not support it. So to your question, we have to keep saying this, and it's why I'm willing to be literally canceled. Good luck on that. Canceled from the trans community, because I will not be attached to a lie. And I don't do this in order to take rights from anybody else. We never did that as trans people. We wanted to coexist with you. I want to sit at the table with you. I want to be invited places. I don't want to be you mad at me. But now it's like, that's why I'm telling you, these people are not trans people. They are men. And if you look, how come the fight is all about trans women? How come no one's talking about trans men?
No one cares about the opposite.
Because we're females. That's why.
I know. Obviously. And you're not making any demand other to be able to live in peace. Quietly and in peace. I don't need to take anything from you.
That's right. Can you imagine if I was attacking men? It would be a whole other. If it was switched, just switch the tables around. Men would never stand for this. They would never, ever stand for this. But
no,
here we are.
That is correct. I've said this, and we talked about it earlier in the conversation. Women's empathy has been weaponized against us because we all want to be nice. And even the other day, look, this is my whole business, right? Yes. I have a whole brand. I took everything I had. I pulled myself up after a very difficult couple of years at COVID. I started to interview and was told I would basically have to apologize for my COVID views to be able to get a job. And even after it was proven I was totally right about schools, so I realized, okay, I need another way forward. I have 4 children.
Yeah.
2 were in college at the time. 2 are quite young. I'm the breadwinner. Me,
Yeah.
I'm the only one in
Yeah.
this family. So I'm like, I guess I'm going to do this. I'm going to start my own thing. And even me, when the woman at the soccer field approached me, I wanted to shrink a little bit. I
Of
didn't.
course.
I had to really coach myself
Yeah.
because I don't want to be mean to anybody.
Of course, because also it's not just you being a woman, it's you being a good person. And also, that's the thing that people are not understanding here. We have to not let this happen because women have been forever, even including me. I'm 62, friend. I fought for women's rights back in the day. I was a butch, masculine woman who was
I'm not going back.
I'm not going back there. And I would never throw women under the bus, just so you know that. Never, ever in a million years. If I have to say I'm a woman and I have to call myself she, I'm willing to do it. I'm not kidding you because it means something to me to be a gay woman, to be a woman, to be a little girl who played soccer in the 60s and 70s, right? I was one of the first AYSO soccer players. I was all-star. I was a track runner going towards the Olympics. I was all of those things. And so I know it. And it upsets me. As you can see, I'm getting so mad about it because first off, the trans community, you people are sick. Okay. Number one. Number two, women out there, we cannot throw each other under the bus. No matter what you feel about another woman, come together.
But the way, like these millennial women, and Gen Zs are a different thing. I have 2 Gen Zs, and I can tell you about that. But the millennial women, because of the way I knew all of this, but in that conversation, it kind of solidified the way that they have co-opted our language. When she said, I care about all girls. In that one phrase, which was fed to her by whatever media, in that one phrase, she said, I was a mean, uncaring person that didn't.
That's
right. I was a bigot and a transphobe.
That's right.
This was the group you wanted to stand with because we were kind. And at the same time, I pointed out the actual safety issues with males playing against women, and that didn't matter. It was like, well, yes, but emotional safety, this is harmful. And I also don't accept that you're harmed by my words. I don't accept it. I reject that.
But also, if you are, isn't that your problem? All this feeling shit. Okay, no, learn how to deal with your own feelings or go to therapy because I don't give a if I tell you and you can't handle it, that's your problem. It's not mine. And also, wow, there is no such thing as all girls like this that are inclusivity. Do you know inclusivity is also bullshit? You can't include everybody in everything.
Well, no, you cannot. I couldn't. I'm 5'3" and I'm 55. I don't get to be in the NBA, even if I love watching and I think Steph Curry is awesome. Tough. So I'm sorry, Italian, not even that blind runner. What's the runner?
I don't know. No, totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
I mean, can I want to talk about this man for a second who's running with women.
Yes.
I can't remember his name.
I know someone just sent me the thing. I don't know the Italian.
He's in the Paralympics.
Yes.
He's won tons of medals, gold medals as a man. He's now in his 50s, I believe, and he's running in the Paralympics against women. This part was very telling to me, Buck. Not only is he cheating and running as a man, and his thing is, well, I've always wanted to win as a woman. Well, you aren't a woman. He's also much less disabled. Did you know this?
Oh, wow. What's his disability?
He's blind.
Okay.
Partially. Okay, fine. But they have levels of blindness.
That's right.
And they put you in various categories.
Oh, so he's not blind.
And all the other women are much more blind. And the other women all run with what, I had to learn all this.
A lead.
They run with what's called a guide.
Yes.
So he doesn't need a guide. He's not blind enough to need a guide.
Okay, I'm done. See you later. Wait a minute. I'm doing a story.
He runs alone.
That's insanity. That just took it to a whole nother level. The fact that the Paralympics is even being in any way touched by this trans ideology is sickening. What is next?
But he's such a narcissist. He's like,
clearly.
He was, in many of these instances, the men who switch to women's are not very good male athletes.
No.
I mean,
no.
Will Thomas was a pretty mediocre swimmer. In golf right now, Haley Davidson was a D2 golfer that never won any prizes or awards, and now he's about to make the LPGA.
Disgusting.
This runner, whose name I can't remember, Italian, he actually won everything.
I am
He was like,
shocked.
he won everything. And so now he's old and he can't win against men anymore. And so
He becomes a
he's
woman.
switching. And he's not that blind.
We've lost our minds.
It's so cheating.
It's not even cheating. It's South Park. It's literally South Park. I was like, what? Wait, that's cheating. Look, I don't even care if he was a good athlete. That's cheating.
Right.
No, man. XY, okay? And XX means my chromosomes are XX. They're not XY. Okay? So that means...
That's transphobic about yourself.
I love when people call me transphobic. It's like so awesome.
But I love though, this decision within the scientific community, because you read Scientific American or whatever, all these like quack publications are, and it's like all of a sudden there's this discovery that show me the paper on it. I don't know where it is. That if you say you're a woman, you're a woman. Like, where's the scientific discovery?
Oh my god! What happened? Oh my god! I know the flat earthers. It literally is. No, no, it isn't. I'm like, but wait a minute.
But, like credible I mean, I don't find them credible, but like. American pediatrics, physicians, everyone, they all say.
It's crazy. It's literally, I don't even know. Actually, I know I laugh a lot about it because I don't want to cry.
You have to.
Because it's just, I just can't get my old brain around this stuff, right? I didn't graduate high school, by the way. I was always called a dummy, and I was always like this person that you're never going to be anything, right? Then I'm just like, really? Like, here I sit today going, basic biology means something, but they really infiltrated the whole system. That's really, to me, the more scary part. How did they actually infiltrate into the system?
I don't.
I know.
I'm sure someone smarter than me could. I mean, obviously, I mean, like someone like James Lindsay would say it was this long and steady, march towards Marxism, and they did infiltrate academia, medical. The last line of defense was actually corporate America, and they have now infiltrated corporate America now.
That's
too.
Right.
Because I put social media companies in the corporate America bucket rather than the media bucket.
Yes.
And they just went. It started with academia. Then it went to the sort of professional organizations, doctors, teachers, and corporate America was the last line of defense because it was supposed to be run by like no nonsense profiteers who wanted to make money, Republicans. And now I have a lot of thoughts on this sort of woke capitalism, but they now, the businesses that sort of lead the world are on the coast. They're in the New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Right.
And with all this disavowal of privilege, these CEOs have huge egos, and they want to not just be rich but loved. And the only way to be loved is to say, I'm sure I have $100 million, but really I'm a social justice warrior.
Oh,
really, that's my true calling. But here's the thing. They care about money more than being loved. So when these strategies start to backfire in their business, they won't apologize, but they'll walk it back because they want the money more than the praise.
Oh, for sure. But disgusting. We need to hold them responsible because you're right. They're literally going to walk back and never talk about the fact that they were promoting all this bullshit right in the beginning. And that's the part that's going to piss me off because people like all of us sitting here, really putting ourselves on the line on some level. And we really are pushing against this. And we are the ones being called all these names. And then what's going to happen is we're doing the work for them. And then what's going to happen, they're just going to come right along and push us out of the way and be like, oh, I always thought that way. That's why we've got to hold these people. Your money is powerful. Where you buy, what you,
I agree.
That as someone.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people, the reason I wanted to start the brands, I come back to that, and I know we're almost done, is brands can normalize ideas in the culture, and they have in the last 20 years. Nike normalized the idea if you have a body, you're an athlete, and got people working out. I mean, I've been to China a bunch of times in my former job at Levi's, and they told me no one exercised before Nike got here. Wow. No one went to yoga before Lulu got here. So brands normalize ideas in the culture. Dove normalized body positivity. And I was like, there's no one saying this really obvious things. Like all the athletic brands are on the other side of this issue. And they say they stand up for women, but they're not standing up for women. So there's this opportunity. And if I can do a brand that makes really awesome content that isn't like content like a lot of the right-leaning brands make,
Yes.
and
Yes.
makes really amazing products, because we
Yes.
do have great workout gear, moisture
Yes.
wicking fabrics. It's really world class. If I can do that, maybe it normalizes the idea. And if
Thank you.
a mom wears the shirt to the soccer game and
Thank
doesn't,
you.
most women, when I wear, because of course I wear my product everywhere,
Of course.
most times when I wear it to my kids' sports events, people lean in and they say, I agree with you.
See, though, that's the part that makes me mad, though. They do
I
that to me
know.
all. People see me all over. They're like, oh, I love your work. I'm like, what? Why can't you
Say
just.
it.
No, it's actually true. People are so scared. But
I know.
that's the beginning, friend.
It is the
That is.
beginning. And that's what I say. I say, if you support it, I would just encourage you, support people that do support in your community in a small
Yes.
way. You don't have to ruin your life. The
Yeah.
first interaction I had that was the woman the other night. But, I've had 50, 60 interactions that were, I agree with you. So
Easy.
I think it can influence. And if somebody
Yes.
sees like, oh, she's saying this out loud, does that mean it's okay to say?
Yes. I've seen it on my channel, because more and more I put this out, I have amassed a large female, 75% of the people that watch my channel are females, by the way, who will support your product. So we're going to put all the links here and everything like that.
Okay.
Because everyone, we have to support her. She's putting herself out on the line. And I told you before, money is power. Stop buying from the companies who don't support you as a woman. Buy from the companies.
Don't buy brands that hate you.
Exactly. It shocks me all the time that people just continue to buy because, well, I like it. I'm like, what? Like, then don't complain. Don't complain.
True, but in fairness, and I'm trying to be nice and generous, they didn't have a good option, because there wasn't. If you want great, look, I don't love that Apple manufactures in China.
Of course,
I
get
still
that.
use my iPhone.
No, I get that I get, but I'm saying just in general, right? Not necessarily just women clothes, but in general, right?
Yes.
If you don't like a food product, but it's your favorite hot dog, I'm sorry, but just maybe stop eating that hot dog for 3 months, and then you can maybe, if they change, you can go back to eating.
But now they do have an option. So for all your hundreds of thousands of followers that support your message and want to protect women's sports, you have an option. It is as good as Lulu. You will not miss Lulu. It is even slightly less expensive than Lulu. So there you have it.
That's right.
Yeah, go check us out. It's called XXXY Athletics. There's a dash between the XX and the XY. You could also go to thetruthfits.com.
Okay.
That's our little vanity URL. And I'll give you a code that you can use.
Oh, you're so awesome. I'll put it all in the description of the video, and it'll all be a link directly to that. And I highly recommend that you people support, because we've got to start pushing back with not only our money, but companies and people and women who are willing to step up to the plate and get, punched in the face at a soccer game for their kids. Like, what? By lesbians. By lesbians. I'm like,
rugby players. I'm toast, Buck. I'm small. As a former gymnast, I'm like tiny. And these are strong, powerful women.
I know. It's so sad.
I did make the case to her that, yes, these are amazingly strong, powerful women. Did you see that female rugby player from the Olympics? She was badass.
She's badass.
They deserve a fair shot.
Oh my God, I have so many butchy chick women who could look like dudes, but are women. And why aren't we celebrating those women? Like, come on, people. Just because you look male doesn't mean you are a man. Like, it's like women can look masculine, by the way. And I think it's hot, and I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, the whole thing is crazy. So I agree. Support brands, and I'm getting much better at this outside of my own brand with, I'm not gonna buy from these woke corporatists.
Me neither.
Anymore.
I'm not either.
I'm just not gonna do it. It's too harmful, and I won't normalize the ideas they're pushing. So
that's right. You have to walk, right? You have to, when you say stuff, you got to participate in doing that, or else you're just really kind of blowing smoke up everyone's ass. So with that, Jen, you're lovely and beautiful. I hope that we remain friends, and I can't wait to meet you in person. Too. And thank you for doing the work and really saving women's sports and pushing all of that. And the kids. It's all about those young girls. Oh my God.
At the end of the day, I tell people ask me all the time, why were you willing to blow your life up over COVID and kids and schools? And I said, because when I was an athlete and I was being abused by my coaches, I wish an adult had stood up for me. So it's really that simple. You become the adult you wish you had in your life as a kid.
Oh,
so,
beautiful.
Kids are the most vulnerable among us. If we do not stand up for kids, we have no
no ethics,
moral
no morals,
compass.
no,
Yeah.
you've lost your way if we don't stand up for these kids. So,
Yeah.
so with
So
that,
you and
everybody,
I are in
yeah,
that together.
we are in the fight, kid. That's right. So thank you everybody for watching, subscribing. See you Wednesday on the live. Don't forget, support this. Really, if you know someone else, push this out there, and let's make this lady rich, because we make her rich, and we all benefit from it. So I'll see you guys all in the next one.